All right, so this week we are diving into James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Okay.
We've got some excerpts and like a breakdown video.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah.
You know, I love me some self-improvement.
Right.
And this book is,
Yeah.
it's like the habit Bible.
It's a classic.
It is a classic, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
What I think is really cool about Atomic Habits is like it really challenges how we think about success.
Okay.
You know, like we want those big wins.
Yeah.
But Clear's kind of arguing that it's the small, almost invisible daily improvements
Yeah.
that like build up over time, that compound
Totally.
into something amazing.
Yeah, he uses that really great analogy of the airplane.
Yeah.
It's just like a tiny few degrees of course correction, and you end up in like a totally different country by the end of the flight.
Exactly.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Makes you really think about all those little choices
Totally.
that we're making every day.
It's like that compound effect, right?
Yeah,
Like imagine if you just learned 5 new words in another language every day.
Okay.
A year later, you'd have 1,800 new words in your vocabulary.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So are you saying like instead of being so focused on the goal,
Yeah.
like I want to be fluent in Italian or whatever,
Right.
it's more about building a system like around that goal.
Exactly.
Like having those daily vocab sessions.
Yeah, like focus on the process instead of getting fixated on like the outcome.
Okay.
Like think about an athlete, right?
Okay.
Like the gold medal is the goal. But it's the daily training.
Yep.
It's the nutrition plan.
Right.
It's the mental fortitude practice that gets them there.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
You know what I mean?
So how does he tie this into
Yeah.
identity
Totally.
and habits? Because that's a whole other
Oh,
can of worms.
he argues that our habits are like outward expressions
Okay.
of our inner beliefs.
Okay.
So if you see yourself as a fit person,
Right.
you're more likely to prioritize exercise.
Okay.
It's not about forcing yourself to work out.
Right.
It's about embodying that identity of a healthy person.
So like if I'm always saying,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not a morning person, I'm just like solidifying that identity
Exactly.
and making it harder to have a morning routine. I like.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you can consciously choose. Okay.
The identity you want to embody.
Okay.
So if you want to be a writer,
Right.
start by seeing yourself as one.
Okay.
Even if it's just for 15 minutes a day.
Okay.
And then your actions will start to reflect that belief.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about the 4 laws of behavior change.
Yes.
Which I am very interested in because from the YouTube video, it seems like this is like the toolkit.
This is the how-to.
Yeah.
The practical application
Yes.
of how to build good habits and break bad ones.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
like the how-to guide.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's all about working with your brain's natural tendencies,
Okay.
not against them.
I like that.
Yeah. And the first law is make it obvious.
And that's about bringing those unconscious habits to light.
Yeah, you know, I tried that habit scorecard thing,
Oh, yeah.
and it was very eye-opening to see, like,
Totally.
how much of my day is just, like, autopilot.
It's amazing how much we do unconsciously.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you're aware of them, then you can start to reshape
Okay.
your environment to support the positive ones.
Okay.
And that's where that second law comes in.
Okay.
Make it attractive.
Okay, so now we're talking about making those healthy habits irresistible.
Yes.
So instead of, like, forcing myself to eat salad,
Yeah.
maybe I have it with one of those fancy cheeses that I love.
I love that
Yes.
you're temptation bundling.
Yes.
You're making that healthy choice more appealing by linking it to something pleasurable.
I love it.
It's like you're hacking your brain.
Yeah. You're working with your brain instead of against it.
Okay. So we're making those healthy choices like a reward.
Exactly.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
But what about like, you know, when those times that your willpower just like fails
Right?
and you're like staring at a cookie
Totally.
and you're like, I know I should not eat this,
Yes.
but my brain is like, sugar.
Well, that's where that third law comes in.
Okay.
Make it easy.
Okay.
It's not about relying on willpower alone.
Right.
It's about removing the friction
Right.
that makes good habits hard
Right.
and bad habits easy.
Okay. So
Like-
like, and that reminds me of that 2-minute rule
Yes.
where it's like you break it down into something so small. You're like,
Yeah.
it'd be silly not to do this.
Like write a novel.
Can feel very daunting.
Yes.
But write for 2 minutes
Yeah.
feels very achievable.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those 2 minutes are all it takes
Right.
to get you going.
Totally. It's like that whole thing, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step
Exact.
or like a single word on a page.
Yes, and once you overcome that initial inertia,
Yeah.
you're way more likely to keep going.
Right.
There was that classic study on exercise
Okay.
where people who were told to just put on their workout clothes
Oh.
were more likely to actually work out
Oh.
than those who weren't.
Wow.
Just the act of putting the clothes on
Wow.
created momentum.
I like it.
Yeah.
So it's like setting myself up for success
Yeah.
by making it so easy
Exactly.
that it would be dumb not to do it.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yeah.
But then what happens?
Then what happens?
What happens when it's like,
When the habit gets boring.
yeah, like I'm doing the thing, but I'm kind of over it.
Right. How do you keep that momentum?
Yeah.
Well, that's where that fourth law comes in.
Okay.
Make it satisfying.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
we're wired to
Laura?
seek out rewards.
Totally.
Well, it's about how do we find ways
Lowry.
to make those good habits immediately gratifying.
Yeah. No, I've totally done that thing where I have like a wall calendar
Oh, yeah.
and like every day that I write,
Yeah.
I get to like color in a little square.
I love that.
It's so dumb, but it's like very satisfying.
No, it's not dumb at all.
To like see those squares add up.
That visual representation of your progress
Yeah.
is so powerful.
It's like I'm giving myself a gold star.
It's so true. It's the little things.
And those small wins are everything.
Right.
They create that sense of accomplishment
Totally.
that keeps you going even when things get tough.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got these 4 laws.
We do.
Make it obvious.
Make it attractive.
Make it easy.
Make it satisfying.
And satisfying
Okay.
working together
Yeah.
to help us build these atomic habits.
Yeah.
But there's more.
There is.
He also talks about like
He does.
how our environment plays a role
You.
in like shaping our habits as well.
Absolutely. He says
Yeah.
we're incredibly susceptible
Okay.
to the cues around us.
Okay.
Remember that example
Yeah.
with the paramedic who instantly knew
Yeah.
that her father-in-law was having a heart attack
Yeah.
just by looking at him. It was crazy. It was like this weird sixth sense.
Totally.
Think-
It was years of experience
Yeah.
that had trained her brain
Right.
to recognize those cues.
Right.
And our environment works the same way.
Okay.
It's constantly shaping our habits
Okay.
without us even realizing it.
So it's like those snacks that are left out on the counter.
Yeah,
They're not just snacks. They're like a cue
they're a trigger.
to eat the snacks.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the more we indulge,
Yeah.
the stronger that neural pathway becomes.
Right.
The harder it is to resist next time.
Okay.
So he talks about choice architecture,
Okay.
designing your environment
Okay.
to support the behavior you want.
Just like if I'm trying to like cut back on sugar,
Yeah,
I probably shouldn't have a candy jar on my desk.
probably. Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind. Exactly.
By minimizing those tempting cues,
Right.
you reduce the mental energy it takes to resist them.
Okay.
So you're setting yourself up for success.
Like that thing where they put the healthy food at eye level in the cafeteria,
Exactly.
and then people just naturally gravitated towards it.
Yeah, it's amazing how powerful
Crazy.
these subtle environmental nudges can be.
So it's not about willpower. It's like you're saying,
It's both.
it's like tricking yourself.
Well, he even suggests
Okay.
like making those bad habits
Yeah.
less appealing
Okay.
by actually increasing the friction
Okay.
associated with them.
So like hiding the remote so I can't binge watch.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're increasing the effort it takes to
Right.
do the bad habit.
I like it. So you're more likely to choose a different one.
Okay.
That's better for you.
I'm convinced I'm redesigning my whole house.
I love it.
But what about those like really deeply ingrained habits? Like
Right.
those ones that just feel,
They're so hard to break.
yeah,
They are.
like they're so hard.
But that's where understanding your triggers is key.
Okay.
So he talks about
How do I figure out what my triggers are?
keep a habit journal.
Okay.
Like what are the patterns
Okay.
in your behavior?
So I'm like a detective
You
of
would
my own habits.
what situations, what emotions,
Okay.
what times of day
Yeah.
tend to trigger those unwanted habits.
Okay.
And then once you know your triggers,
Okay.
you can actually start to develop strategies
Right.
to manage them.
So it's like awareness and then action.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So maybe you realize
Yeah.
that you need to find a healthier way to
Yeah.
cope with stress
Right.
than eating potato chips.
Right. Or scrolling on social media.
Exactly. Or maybe you need to like redesign your evenings
Yeah.
so you're not tempted to stay up late
Okay.
scrolling on your phone.
I like it.
It's about recognizing those patterns
Okay.
and then experimenting with different approaches
Right.
to interrupt them.
Right.
And that's where his emphasis on identity can be really empowering.
Okay.
Because if you see yourself as someone
Right.
who is in control of their habits,
Okay.
who's constantly learning and growing,
Right.
those slip-ups
Yeah.
just become that slip-ups,
Yeah.
not setbacks. You know what I mean?
So it's progress over perfection.
It's not like beating yourself up if you...
Yeah, don't let those little slip-ups
Right.
derail all the progress that you've made.
Yeah, and remembering that those little changes over time that we said at the beginning,
Exactly.
they make a big difference.
They do.
Okay, so we've talked about making those tiny changes and like understanding our triggers
Right. Yeah.
and like tweaking our environment to like support our goals.
Total.
But is there a risk of like getting too stuck in a rut,
Ooh, that's a good question.
even with like good habits, you know?
Yeah, he actually brings that up.
Okay.
He says good habits can be kind of a double-edged sword
Okay.
if you're not careful.
How so?
He compares it to like a river carving a path through rock.
Okay.
At first, it's about creating that groove.
Right. But over time, the river can kind of become trapped in that groove,
Right.
unable to like explore new territory.
So it's like we can get so set in our ways
Exactly.
with those good habits
Total.
that we miss out on other opportunities or like...
Or even just better ways
Yeah.
of doing things.
Which is why he's such a big proponent of reflection.
Yes.
Like to combat that.
Regularly taking a step back
Yeah.
and assessing like, okay, is this still working for me?
Like an annual review.
He actually suggests that, like an annual review for your habits.
I like that.
Kind of like a performance review, but for your personal growth.
Okay.
Ask yourself, like, what worked well this year?
Right.
What habits kind of fell by the wayside?
Right.
What new ones do I want to explore?
Yeah, it's like that quote, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Totally.
So if we want to keep growing, we have to be willing to like adjust
Exactly.
our approach.
Yeah. And he also talks about finding that sweet spot
Okay.
between boredom and overwhelm
Okay.
when it comes to our habits.
Okay.
He calls it the Goldilocks rule.
Okay.
Not too hard, not too easy.
Okay. I like this.
Just right.
So how do we find that sweet spot for ourselves?
It's about finding the right challenge level
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
Remember that language learning example?
Yeah.
Like, starting with 5 words a day is manageable,
Right.
but eventually you're going to want to ramp it up
Right.
to keep things interesting.
Like leveling up in a video game.
Exactly. You don't want to be stuck at the same level forever.
No, you want to keep progressing.
Yeah.
I like it.
And it goes back to aligning your habits
Okay.
with your identity.
Right.
Remember, it's not just about the actions themselves. It's about who you become.
Right. So instead of I want to run a marathon, it's like I am a runner.
Exactly.
Right.
When your habits are rooted in like your values and your
Yes.
aspirations, they become so much more sustainable.
Right, because it's like who you are.
Exactly.
It's not just this thing you're trying to do.
It's not a chore.
Yeah.
It's part of who you are.
Okay. I like that a lot.
So as we wrap up our deep dive on atomic habits,
Yes.
what's resonating with you most?
Honestly, I think that shift for me from like outcome-based goals to like identity-based habits.
Yeah.
Like it's not about checking things off a list. It's about
Slowly.
becoming like the best version of myself.
Yes.
And it's those tiny little things that get you there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And remember, it's a journey,
It is
not a destination.
not a destination.
There will be setbacks and detours along the way.
Right.
But the key is to just keep learning, keep experimenting,
Keep going.
keep moving forward.
Yeah. So for anybody listening,
Yes.
what is one tiny change you can make today
I love it.
aligned with who you want to become?
Yes.
Remember those small shifts,
Tiny.
those atomic habits?
Yes.
They really do make a difference in the long run.